July 3rd, 1863, Cemetery Ridge, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. General George Gordon Meade holds the high ground with 93,000 soldiers of the Army of the Potomac. His defensive line runs 7 miles along the ridgeline, anchored at both ends by wooded hills with clear fields of fire across the open valley below. 3/4 of a mile to the west sits Seminary Ridge. Robert E. Lee is there with 71,000 men. 2 days of brutal fighting have produced no decision. Lee has identified his point of attack, the weakest section of the Union center, a low stone wall at a slight angle called the Angle, defended by 2 divisions and backed by a smoothbore artillery. He'll send 12,500 soldiers across open farmland in broad daylight. Nearly half become casualties in under an hour. The Union holds. The Confederacy never recovers. But let's change one thing. The year is still the same. July 1863. The political fracture that split the nation is identical. The same states have seceded. The same president sits in Washington. The same general commands Confederate forces on the field. But the weapons are not the same. The armies facing each other across Pennsylvania farmland are equipped with everything the 21st century has produced. M1A2 Abrams main battle tanks, AH-64 Apache attack helicopters, F-35 multi-role fighters operating from forward air bases in Maryland and Ohio, M270 multiple launch rocket systems capable of saturating a grid square with munitions from 40 kilometers away. Both sides have them. Both sides trained on them. This is not a scenario where one army has been modernized and the others has not been. 2 full modern military forces. Same ground, same objective, entirely different war. The Union position. The Army of the Potomac in this scenario fields 4 brigade combat teams, roughly 16,000 combat soldiers with supporting air assets out of Harrisburg. The defensive position at Cemetery Ridge is still one of the finest pieces of terrain in the Eastern Theater. High ground, clear sight lines for 3 miles in every direction. The Union commander has spent 48 hours preparing it. Hesco barriers reinforce the original stone walls. M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles sit in hold down positions along the ridgeline, each carrying a 25mm chain gun and tow anti-tank missiles effective to 3,750 meters. M10 9A6 Paladin self-propelled howitzers occupy firing positions 2 miles to the rear. 6 rounds per minute per gun. 8 batteries. 48 guns total. The ridge is not simply defended, it's prepared to destroy at any range the attacker chooses. 3 AH-64E Apache Guardian helicopters operate in pairs out of a forward rearming point near the Gettysburg Borough. Each carries 16 Hellfire missiles and 76 Hydra 70 rockets. A single RQ-7 Shadow unmanned aircraft circles at 15,000 feet, feeding real-time infrared video directly to the brigade command post. Nothing moves on Seminary Ridge without that feed registering it. Counter battery radar locates enemy artillery the instant it fires. Response time from detection to first impact is under 90 seconds. The individual soldier on Cemetery Ridge carries an M4A1 carbine with a variable power optic and a PVS-14 night vision monocular. Accurate engagement at 500 meters in daylight, 300 in darkness. His 1863 equivalent managed perhaps 200 meters with a Springfield rifle musket on a clear afternoon with no wind. The Confederate position. The Army of Northern Virginia in this scenario fields 2 brigade combat teams, approximately 14,000 soldiers with equivalent artillery and rotary wing assets. They hold the tree line along Seminary Ridge. Their own Abrams tanks are holed down behind the crest. Their own Apache helicopters sit under camouflage netting in a field 3 miles southwest of town. The Confederate commander has the same intelligence picture the Union does. Persistent drone coverage, signals, intercepts, blue force tracking that displays every vehicle on the opposite ridge in near real time. This is not 1863 when Lee's understanding of Meade's dispositions depended on cavalry scouts and hilltop observers with field glasses. Now both commanders see the same battlefield with nearly identical fidelity. The question is not who sees it better, the question is who moves first and why. Lee's modern equivalent faces the same fundamental tactical problem. The Union holds better ground. The Confederate army must either attack or allow the strategic situation to erode without a decisive engagement. Waiting's not viable. The logistical demand of a modern mechanized force operating on peninsula farmland is unsustainable. A single M1A2 Abrams consumes approximately 3 gallons per mile of movement and 10 gallons per hour at idle. 14 tanks running 48 hours of tactical repositioning have consumed roughly 13,000 gallons. The Confederate supply line stretches 200 miles back into Virginia. Every hour without a decision degrades combat power in ways that cannot be recovered in the field. Attack is the only rational choice. It It was in 1863. It still is. The opening. The battle begins the same way the original did, with artillery. The Confederate rocket batteries open at 0430, 48 M270 launchers releasing the first salvo from positions behind South Mountain, 17 miles west. Each M26 rocket carries 644 dual-purpose submunitions. The first salvo covers Cemetery Ridge in under 60 seconds. Counter-battery radar picks up the launches at ignition. Union Paladins are already rotating their barrels. 90 seconds after the first Confederate round impacts the ridge, 155mm fire begins landing on battery positions behind South Mountain. The exchange runs for 22 minutes. Unlike 1863, neither side's artillery survives largely intact. Counter-battery response is too accurate and too fast. The guns that open this battle are mostly destroyed or displaced in the first 30 minutes of daylight. The air. Both sides launch attack helicopters at 0451. Confederate Apaches come north through the Chambersburg corridor at 200 feet, using terrain masking to close within Hellfire range before Union radar acquires them. They don't make it undetected. The Shadow UAV registers rotor signatures at 8 kilometers. Union Apaches are airborne before Confederate aircraft reach firing position. The engagements last 11 minutes. Both sides lose aircraft. When it ends, 4 helicopters are burning in the fields between the ridges, and neither side retains meaningful rotary wing coverage. The air war above Gettysburg is effectively finished before 0530. What remains is a ground fight. Tanks, infantry, and whatever rockets each side has left after the artillery exchange. The open farmland between the ridges now belongs to whoever is willing to cross it. The assault. The Confederate armored element moves at 0600. 6 Abrams tanks advance in a wedge formation across the same fields that Pickett's men crossed on foot 162 years earlier. The distance is identical. 3/4 of a mile of open farmland with almost no cover. In 1863, it took 50 minutes. Tanks cover it in under 4. Union Bradleys open fire at 3,200 meters with tow missiles. The first tank stops at 3,100 meters, penetrating hit through the front glacis. The second burns. Surviving tanks return fire with 120mm smoothbore guns. A Bradley on the left flank takes a direct hit. Gone. The exchange is clean and brutal. These weapons were engineered specifically to kill each other. Both sides are running that equation at the same time across 3/4 of a mile of Pennsylvania farmland. Confederate infantry follows the armor. 4,000 soldiers moving in dispersed bounds, using tanks as cover, advancing in short rushes between terrain features. This is not Pickett's charge. There are no dressed lines. No flags carried forward into direct fire. These soldiers understand interlocking fields of fire, dead ground, and the geometry of modern suppression. The Union infantry on the ridge engages at 500 meters with M4s. Designated marksmen work targets at 800 meters with M110 semi-automatic sniper systems. Every defender has thermal capability that darkness does nothing to reduce. Confederate soldiers fall in the open. They keep moving. Some reach the wire obstacles placed 200 meters forward of the ridge. Some breach them. The fighting at the stone wall is no longer a metaphor for anything. It is direct. It is close. The wall. At the angle, the distance collapses. Fighting at 30 meters narrows the technological gap significantly. A soldier with an M4 against a soldier with an M4 is an equal fight. The question becomes who arrived with more men still capable of fighting. Union reserves push forward from the reserves slope. 2 additional infantry companies close the gap where Confederate soldiers breached the wire. Penetrations are contained. The Confederate assault reaches the stone wall at 3 separate points simultaneously. At one of them, soldiers from both sides exchange fire across the same stones that marked the high water mark of the Confederacy in the original war. The Union line bends. It does not break. The weight of the defensive preparation, the depth of the reserves, and the advantage of the elevation hold what they held in 1863. The F-35s enter the picture at 0730. 2 F-35As operating out of Harrisburg carry GBU-39 small diameter bombs, each weighing 250 pounds and impacting within 1 meter of its designated GPS coordinate. The Confederate Armored Reserve, 4 tanks and 8 fighting vehicles staged in an orchard along Willoughby Run, is the first target package. The bombs arrive without warning. No sound precedes them at effective range. The orchard ceases to function as a tactical position in under 40 seconds. Confederate command and control begins fragmenting at company level. Forward units at the wall are now without armor support, without resupply routes, and under air attack from assets they have no remaining air defense to intercept. They hold for 20 more minutes. Then they withdraw. The withdrawal. Not a rout, not the collapse that ended Pickett's charge. Organized, covered by rearguard elements moving in overwatch pairs back across the same fields. The Union does not pursue. Pursuit against a withdrawing force that still carries anti-tank missiles is not a cavalry following broken infantry. The morning's cost. Approximately 800 Confederate casualties, 340 Union, 3 tanks destroyed destroyed on each side, 11 vehicles total, 4 helicopters. In 1863, a single day at Gettysburg produced 51,000 casualties across both armies combined. The lethality is not lower in the modern version. The numbers are lower because the formations are smaller and more dispersed. The weapons are catastrophically more lethal per engagement. The ratio of damage to personnel committed is higher in 2025, not lower. The broader war. A modern civil war is not decided at a single ridge in Pennsylvania. It runs across 1,200 miles of contested border between Union and Confederate states simultaneously. The Union's Atlantic Fleet imposes a naval blockade on Confederate ports within 72 hours. GPS jamming and cyber operations degrade both sides' command networks within the first week. The industrial base of the Midwest, untouched by direct fighting, produces replacement munitions and vehicles at a rate the agricultural South cannot match by any measure. Confederate air defense is formidable, not inexhaustible. Each Patriot interceptor costs $3 million. Each battery carries a finite load. The Union generates enough cruise missile volume to make that math unsustainable within the first month. The same disparity in industrial capacity that decided the original war is present here. Larger now, not smaller. Cemetery Ridge holds in 2025 the same way it held in 1863. The Confederate Army withdraws back toward Virginia. The logistical situation that forced the attack in the first place has only worsened. 3 days of mechanized operations in Pennsylvania have consumed fuel, missiles, and vehicles that cannot be replaced at the front. The Union air component is resupplied and rearmed within 48 hours. The Confederate force that crossed into the north burned through irreplaceable assets against a prepared defensive line that air support and pre-positioned munitions were always going to hold. The math was the same as it was 162 years ago. The army that holds the ridge and waits pays less than the army that crosses open ground and attacks. In 1863, that cost is 6,000 men in one afternoon. In 2025, it costs